You're lying beneath a velvet night sky, stars glittering like frozen sparks scattered across the dark. The world is quiet. Still. Peaceful. And then, just as your eyes settle on the brightest star, it vanishes. No noise. No warning. No explosion. Just, gone. You blink. Maybe you imagined it. But a moment later, another disappears. Then another. Slowly, steadily, stars are blinking out, one by one, as though the sky itself is falling asleep. At first, no one notices. Just a few stargazers, a handful of astronomers. They report anomalies, but they're dismissed as equipment malfunctions or miscalculations. After all, stars don't just disappear, do they? The phenomenon is subtle at first. It's not like the sun exploded or the moon shattered, those would be obvious. But this? This is quieter. Almost gentle. The stars are simply slipping away, as if someone were slowly dimming the lights of the universe. You begin to feel it, not in your bones, but in your mind. An eerie sense that something vast and ancient is changing, shifting. The constellations, those familiar patterns etched into the sky, start to lose their shape. Orion's belt becomes Orion's buttons. The Big Dipper now looks like a broken ladle. Stories passed down for centuries unravel under the ever-darkening heavens. Then, the world starts to talk. Social media erupts with comparisons, theories, blurry phone photos. Scientists gather at observatories, data crunching machines hum all night. But no telescope sees a supernova. No black hole swallowing. No gas clouds expanding. Just a disappearing act. One star. Then another. Night after night. People try to explain it. Maybe it's a dust cloud. Maybe we're entering a cosmic fog. Maybe it's a simulation glitch. Are we just pixels in someone else's dream? But the mystery only deepens. Weeks pass. Dozens of stars vanish. People begin holding vigils, lying together in open fields, watching the sky fade. Some call it the Great Dim. Others, the Silent Extinction. And for the first time in a long while, people begin to wonder, not about technology, not about politics, but about existence. About what's beyond. About how small we truly are. You sit on your rooftop, wrapped in a blanket, staring up. There's less to see now. A thin crescent moon. A handful of stubborn stars refusing to leave. The air feels heavier somehow, even though it hasn't changed. Across the world, darkness becomes a spectacle. Tourism booms in remote places where light pollution is minimal. Starless skies are the new attraction. People want to see the absence. They want to feel the void. But with each passing week, more stars wink out. Entire galaxies vanish from view. The Milky Way, once a ribbon of silver, now a faint memory. And then, it happens. One night, the North Star disappears. It's a quiet global moment. Planes stop in midair. Radios cut to silence. Even the oceans seem to pause their waves. For thousands of years, the North Star has guided explorers, sailors, and dreamers. Now it's gone. Just empty blackness where it once burned. That night, people cry. Not out of fear, but out of something deeper, a kind of cosmic homesickness. A sense that we are drifting further from whatever holds the universe together. In the aftermath, a strange calm settles. News anchors speak in hushed tones. Children draw dark skies with silver crayons. Poets write verses about starless nights and forgotten light. But you can't sleep. You keep staring. Waiting for the next one to go. And then, just before dawn, you see it, another faint point of light, gone. The night had changed. What used to be a canvas of scattered diamonds had become a puzzle with missing pieces. Entire constellations were disappearing, not in a single night, not dramatically, but subtly, almost shyly, as if the stars themselves were embarrassed to be seen leaving. Orion's belt lost a jewel. Then the Big Dipper looked like a ladle dropped on the ground, bent and broken. At first, people assumed it was atmospheric distortion, satellites, or pollution. But telescopes confirmed it. Stars were truly gone. Not exploded, not moving, just gone. Light that had traveled for millions of years was being swallowed by something unknown, and from Earth, we could only sit and watch. Across cities and villages, the buzz of conversation grew. It wasn't panic, not yet. It was a soft hum of worry, like a song sung under one's breath, unsure of the lyrics. The astronomer's lament. In a quiet observatory nestled in the Chilean Andes, Dr. Avellini watched the sky through tears. She had studied the stars her whole life. Memorized their coordinates, sketched their dance, and whispered their names like prayers. Now, her lifelong companions were fading like old photographs left in sunlight. Each night she pointed her telescope, hoping to find what had vanished. Nothing. The black between the stars felt blacker, deeper, emptier. It was as if the universe was unraveling itself thread by thread, beginning with its brightest knots. Avellini began writing what she called the Lament Catalogue, a record of every star that had gone missing. She filled notebook after notebook, her handwriting growing shaky with each entry. Others began doing the same. Amateur astronomers, students, children with backyard telescopes. All over the world, people started to grieve. The stars had always been constants, silent, reliable, eternal. And now they were leaving. The silence between us. Strangely, as the stars disappeared, so did something else. The noise. It was subtle at first. The world seemed quieter. Not just at night, but all the time. Birds stopped singing before dawn. Crickets fell silent in the grass. Even traffic seemed to hush, like it, too, was holding its breath. Some believed it was psychological. A mass delusion. But sound meters confirmed it, decibels had dropped. Nature had quieted down, and no one knew why. As the stars blinked out above, Earth dimmed within. People walked slower. Talked softer. Sat alone longer. And through it all, the stars kept vanishing, one by one. New night rituals. With stargazing becoming an act of mourning, new rituals emerged. In Tokyo, people gathered on rooftops each night with candles shaped like the constellations now lost. They whispered their names and let the wax melt into tiny pools of memory. In Alaska, families built snow lanterns to represent stars. When one melted in the spring, it was considered a farewell to a celestial friend. A new kind of religion even began to form, the Order of the Eternal Light. They believed the stars weren't dying but ascending to a higher plane of illumination, invisible to our eyes but radiant to the soul. It brought comfort to some, confusion to others. And still, the stars continued to vanish. Dreams without stars. Then came the dreams. They began as scattered reports, people dreaming of pitch-black skies and ancient voices. In these dreams, the sky was not a dome of stars, but a sea of glass, shattered and hollow. Children described being lifted toward an empty heaven, reaching out to find nothing. Artists painted scenes of colorless galaxies. Poets wrote verses without rhyme. Musicians played songs without notes. Sleep became a journey into darkness. And night became something to fear. The global response. Governments convened. Satellites were launched. New observatories were built in remote deserts and high mountains, all aimed at one thing, finding out where the stars were going. Some hypothesized a massive cloaking field stretching across the cosmos. Others believed the stars had simply ceased to be. A few whispered about alien intelligence. What if something was collecting them? But no signals came. No warnings. No clues. Just darkness. Expanding. A cosmic countdown. Avellini's lament catalogue grew thin. Only a few thousand stars remained visible to the naked eye. Then hundreds. Then dozens. And finally, just one. A tiny, flickering dot over the southern horizon. No one knew its name, or if it had one. But it was beautiful. Brighter than any star had ever been, pulsing like a lighthouse in the void. People all over the world turned their eyes toward it, whispering to it as they had to the stars before. It was hope. It was memory. It was the last. And then it vanished. The night sky was no longer a place of quiet comfort, it had become a source of anxiety. As the stars continued to vanish, scientists scrambled for explanations. Every telescope, satellite, and observatory on Earth focused outward, looking for clues in the growing void. But the stars didn't explode, flicker out, or dim gradually, they simply vanished. One moment they were there. The next, only darkness. At first, people speculated it was a trick of perception, or an error in our equipment. But as entire constellations faded, and astronomers confirmed the disappearances from all corners of the globe, the world had no choice but to accept the impossible. By now, nearly half of the stars visible from Earth were gone. The constellations we had grown up with, the ancient maps of mythology in the sky, were broken, scattered. Orion had lost his belt. The Big Dipper no longer pointed north. The sky looked unfamiliar, alien. And with the stars, something else began to vanish: certainty. Humans had always looked to the stars for navigation, inspiration, and answers. We used them to find our way across oceans. We told stories about them. We made wishes on them. Now, with each point of light that disappeared, it felt like a thread in the fabric of reality had been snipped. Some believed this was the work of a cosmic predator, something massive, invisible, and incomprehensibly old. Others were convinced we had slipped into a simulation, and the programmers were deleting the background one asset at a time. But perhaps the most chilling theory was the one no one wanted to believe: what if this was a warning? What if something was coming, and the stars were vanishing because it had already reached them? Back on Earth, the impact deepened. Nighttime was no longer beautiful. It was eerie. Empty. And the darkness felt heavier. Sleep disorders skyrocketed. With the stars gone, the natural signals our brains had evolved to use were gone too. Melatonin production was disrupted. People began sleeping poorly, dreaming restlessly, dreams filled with voids and vanishing things. In some places, cities responded by lighting up the night like permanent daytime, trying to stave off the creeping darkness. In others, people turned off all their lights entirely, hoping in the silence they might hear something, anything, from the sky. Even animals were confused. Birds that used celestial navigation became disoriented. Sea turtles laid eggs in the wrong seasons. Whales wandered off their migration routes. But the most haunting part? Radio silence. We tried sending signals into the parts of space where the stars had vanished. Nothing came back. Not even static. It was as if those regions were no longer part of the universe. Somewhere, buried deep in a lab, a small team of physicists discovered something even more terrifying. The areas where stars had disappeared weren't just empty, they were shrinking. The very fabric of space was collapsing inward. And the speed at which it was happening was increasing. It was subtle, too subtle for the average telescope, but undeniable. The universe wasn't just losing stars. It was losing volume. The last star blinked out at 3:12 a.m., Universal Time. There was no sound, no tremor, no flash. Just a quiet flicker, and then nothing. All around the Earth, people waited. Some huddled inside, curtains drawn, pretending it was still night as it had always been. Others stood under the black sky, searching with eyes full of questions, searching for one final light, one final answer. But it didn't come. For the first time in our species' history, we were alone in true darkness. And then, silence. The stars had been our distant companions for millions of years. Even before we had language, we had constellations, patterns in the sky to tell stories, guide our way, spark our imagination. But now the stories had ended. Night was not night anymore. It was just the absence of light. In cities, the glow of artificial lighting was now the only thing left holding back the void. But even that began to feel small. Inconsequential. A candle against the wind. Across the planet, the mood grew strange. Not panic. Not chaos. Something quieter. A deep, shared stillness. Like the whole world was holding its breath. Was this the beginning of something? Or the end? Then came the dreams. In sleep, people saw impossible things. Dreams of stars reversing, falling upward, blinking back into existence only to vanish again. Some dreamed of celestial beings watching through the dark. Others saw doors in space slowly swinging open. And some saw the earth from above, small, glowing, alone in a black ocean. We tried to explain it all. Scientists, mystics, philosophers. Everyone searched for meaning. But there was no precedent, no formula. The universe had simply stopped showing its stars. And the darkness had stopped growing. It had reached us. And paused. That pause lasted days. Then weeks. People adapted. Astronomers kept scanning. Thinkers kept thinking. Artists began creating again, painting the empty sky, composing quiet songs that held the ache of absence. Children born after the stars disappeared didn't know what they were missing. Their bedtime stories were about what once was. The sky used to be full, parents whispered. You would have loved it. And somehow, even in the shadow of a missing cosmos, humanity kept going. We lit our own way. And then, one night, something changed. A single point of light appeared over the horizon. It was tiny. Barely visible. Some thought it was a satellite. Others believed it was a hallucination, a wishful flicker conjured by exhausted eyes. But then it moved. Not across the sky, but toward us. Brightening. Slowly. Gently. As if it had noticed we were watching. The world stopped again. Every screen, every broadcast, every voice turned to the same question. What is it? And then, in the purest silence imaginable, the light grew a little stronger. Not blinding. Not fast. Just, present. Hopeful. No message. No contact. Just presence. Maybe it was a new star being born. Maybe it was something else entirely. But in that one dot of light, something returned to the human spirit that had been missing since the night the stars disappeared. Wonder. And that was enough. We had survived the void. We had learned to see in the dark. And now, with one soft light shining in the sky, we remembered how to look up again, not with fear, but with curiosity. The sky had become a canvas of forgetting. Where once patterns of constellations told stories of gods, beasts, and lovers, now there was only darkness, vast and complete. People no longer looked up in wonder, they looked up in search, in mourning. The stars were gone, not abruptly, not in a burst of light or chaos, but quietly, respectfully, as if the universe was dimming the lights for us to rest. In the final days of starlight, humans had changed. There was a kind of reverence to their movements. Cities, once fueled by ambition and competition, had slowed. Nights were no longer for parties or screens, but for silence. The artificial lights stayed off longer. People gathered on rooftops and balconies, holding hands and watching the dark sky together, waiting for the last twinkles to blink out. The final star vanished on a Thursday. It was seen only from the southern hemisphere, barely visible between two drifting clouds over a small coastal village. A child spotted it first, called to their family, and within minutes the whole village had gathered to see. It glowed for just a moment longer, stubborn, proud, and then, like a final breath, it faded into the black. And then, it was done. The universe wasn't loud anymore. It didn't shimmer or whisper through constellations. It didn't wink through telescopes. It simply existed. A wide, dark, endless thing. But something strange happened in the silence. Humans, left without the stars, began to turn inward. Not in fear, not in despair, but in deep, curious peace. Without the distractions above, they noticed what was around them. The way trees bent in the wind. The sound of rivers at night. The rhythm of each other's breathing while they slept. Some said the stars had gone so we would learn to see ourselves again. The world shifted. Astronomy evolved into introspection. Observatories turned into quiet sanctuaries. Planetariums became places of storytelling, where the memory of starlight was kept alive, not as science, but as myth and magic. Children were told bedtime tales of stars that once danced in the sky, just as ancient peoples had done thousands of years ago. And still, there was hope. A satellite sent far, far beyond our galaxy centuries ago had stopped sending signals, but a new one, built in the last golden age of astronomy, now stirred. It floated through the black, seeking signs of distant stars that might still remain. One day, it blinked. A signal. Faint. Incomplete. But undeniably there. Somewhere, deep in the unfathomable stretch of space, light still lived. A star still burned. Perhaps many. Perhaps millions. And in that moment, humanity remembered, the stars had not truly vanished, only left our sight for a time. Maybe they were waiting for us to listen better, to slow down, to feel the stillness. In the new world of sleeping skies and dreaming hearts, we had finally learned how.